Okay, so there are a lot of ambitious people in the world, and there's a big question about what you put that ambition into. How you decide to become successful. Um, and I'll say that the main route that a lot of ambitious people try and become successful is effectively by the 9 to 5. Um, so what I mean by this is obviously like you get people who, like most people have to do a 9 to 5 at some point, right? The difference is with a lot of people, they'll really try and like go the corporate route and become successful that way. So they'll get a job in like a big bank or a insurance company or whatever it is. In the big city, in London, in New York, whatever it is, and working like a skyscraper and the rest of it. And this is they will try to rise to the top in these kind of jobs, and that's how they have their success, right? Rather than starting a business or something like that. And I actually just don't think this is a great way to do it, and I'm gonna explain why. I think the reason why is like, basically this is the roadmap: is you go to university, do quite well at university, get a sort of job at one of these jobs, and you basically just dedicate your early adult life of like your 20s and probably quite a large chunk of your 30s and your 40s to just working this job, getting right to the top, getting to a point where you're very senior, and then about you can retire at 50, right, if you really do well. And then you've got all the money you could ever want for the rest of your life. Trouble with this is I think it's quite it's not a very sort of complex, not a very sophisticated way about thinking about life. Let's start with the getting retired at 50 thing, right? You've worked really hard, you've dedicated your life to this business, to this job, and now you're 50, you retired, you got all the money you want. It's funny because like when I went to school, like I met a few people who were like fell into this category of like they'd worked like a corporate job in something, quite high flying, and then they'd retired, and now they were just like stay at home dads or whatever. And it really got me thinking about it, because I just think that the average 50-year-old's life is fucking boring. I do think that older generation, like my parents' generation, they're great for like wisdom and stories and whatever else, but their lifestyle just isn't very interesting at that point in their life. And I think part of that is just because when you get to that age, you don't really have the same desire to like do stuff anymore. And it's kind of a weird point to have all that money and retire and sort of give yourself lots of time, because I feel like that a lot of these retired 50-year-olds, their life, like, it's no different really to like that of someone who's living in like a suburban house somewhere in quite an average part of the UK, and they're earning a fraction of their wage. Now you're doing it in a nice house. Maybe you got a pool or whatever, but and hey, that stuff's important. It's important to have a nice house and whatever. But I'm not discounting that. But just the day-to-day activities, they're kind of the same. It's like, what do you do when you're 50? You've got a family. Maybe you'll afford to go on like holiday somewhere nice. As often as you can, and that's kind of it. You have some hobbies, some social stuff, whatever. But you don't really like when you hit 50. Like you're not really gonna be motivated to, I don't know, just book like a last minute holiday, or just go on some really big adventure or whatever. Stuff that you kind of need. Stuff that you need the money for. Stuff that the money can actually go towards. It just goes. Yeah, you just don't feel motivated to. You don't really need to anymore. Now, I'll caveat this because I'm sure a lot of people would think this. Like, in a sense, you spend that money on other things, right? You spend that money on a nice house, the opportunity to send your kids to a good school, stuff like that. And I get that, but I don't think that the average person in a corporate job seems to think like that. Like normally, I might be wrong here, but normally when I talk to someone in this kind of corporate environment, they'll say like it's the sort of luxury stuff they want. It's the indulgences, the material stuff that money can afford them. That's what they want to spend the money on, basically when they make it, which is fine. Like I'm not actually knocking that. I think materialism to an extent is fine, but it's if they're not saying like, oh, I want to make it so I can buy a good house and send my kids to a good school. That doesn't really seem to be where it's coming from. It seems to be coming from a place of like, oh, I'm gonna make shit tons of money and just do whatever the fuck I want. But it's like the only time you're gonna be able to do what the fuck you want is when you're retired, because otherwise you're just a slave to this system, right? You're just working extremely hard at this job. And so yeah, I just think you need a better way that doesn't frame retirement in quite the same way. You need the idea that you need a more clear idea of like why you're spending your money and like how you're going to spend it. I mean, a book that I really recommend is The 4-Hour Workweek, which is I've got quite an interesting cover of it here. But yeah, this is basically the whole thing about the 4-Hour Workweek is like you need to actually work out why do you want to make money? Like, what do you want to spend it on? Is it because you want to go somewhere? Is it because you want to learn a skill, something like that? And just really break it down and sort of plan your life around those things. And Tim Ferriss comes up with this idea called the mini retirement, which people make fun of, but I actually think it's a really good idea and it really makes sense. It's basically where you just do all the stuff that you want to do in retirement when you've made it, but just like in a holiday instead. And so yeah, it's a much better way of looking at it. Like yeah, you just need to do it right now, basically. And it's hard to do that in a corporate environment. This is why I think these kind of online businesses, digital nomad lifestyle is much better if you're ambitious and you want to make a success of your life. And because it just frees you up to actually do the stuff that you want to do with the money you have before you are just not able to, basically. And yeah, that's basically it. One thing I would say as well is obviously there are people who just love this industry. Like they find I don't know, insurance interesting, or they find banking interesting. I don't think that's why most people go into it, but like I'm sure that does happen. There are people who just like this area, and they just like the environment and stuff like that. I've spoken to a few people who just say like they like the environment of a corporate setting and they find it quite fun to be around it. It's not necessarily that they want to retire as a millionaire or whatever, but that kind of environment is quite fun to be around, and that's absolutely fine. I mean, it's all absolutely fine at the end of the day. It's your life, but I just think if you wanna, it's much more worthwhile, I think, to use your creativity to become rich and achieve your dreams, rather than depending on what, just trying to form too much of like a set path. And yeah, that's basically it, guys. If you click the top link in the description, I'm doing some coaching at the moment. If you do think you'd be a good fit, let me know. We can get you accountable, work on your goals, stuff like that. And I will see you in the next video.